me welcome you all this morning and also thank you for being here. I know it's early and I know it's Monday, so we are especially happy that you were able to respond to our request for this engagement. Now, this morning we have three main issues that we would like to address as a party. Just allow me to deal with some procedural issues before we get into it. The three issues we'll address from the head table. As you can see, it's two of us, and we will then receive your questions, if you have questions, which will be directed by myself. Now, having done that, allow me to introduce myself, Malika Parker. I'm here in my capacity as the Education Officer for the United Progressive Party and one of its spokesperson for the national campaign. I have beside me this morning the Chairman of the United Progressive Party, Ambassador Leon Chaku Simister. The three major issues we will be addressing will be in this chronological order. One, the claims and objections period, which we know commences today. Secondly, the current issue regarding the date of elections in Antigua and Barbuda. And thirdly, we would like to share with you information in terms of our plans as a party leading up to March 15th, a day we know has significance because the Prime Minister has promised a great reveal to the nation on that day. So those are the three issues. Issue number one, claims and objections start today as per the Representation of the People's Act. Let me begin first by stating that the United Progressive Party fully respects the autonomy, the independence of the Electoral Commission. We appreciate the work that the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission does in Antigua and Barbuda for democracy. And as a government, we have continued to strengthen the operations. However, as we sit here this morning and the period of claims and objections are set to begin, we think it as a party responsible and necessary for us to highlight some concerns that we have and also to share some information that we think is important for the nation to consume. Firstly and broadly, we want to deal with the issue of a number of irregularities that have come to our attention concerning this process. And by irregularities, we mean, for example, number one, the fact that some constituencies that have filed objections have not had those objections considered and included in this process. Concerns such as, for example, the fact that we also have what we believe some abuse of the discretion of the powers of some of our registration officers. And I'll just stop there as we look at this issue and allow the chairman to expand.
Good morning. As you know, and as Malika has indicated, the claims and objections period begins today, that there will be hearings in a number of constituencies. Let me give some background. Well, first, let me say that we in the United Progressive Party are pleased and happy that the Chief Registration Officer is a woman, because our party promotes women, respect the kind of contribution that they make. Nonetheless, from time to time, we may find ourselves in a position where we have to be critical of government officials and public officers and the work they perform. On February 4th, 2014, our party received a letter from the Chief Registration Officer and a list of a little more than 900 names. The Chief Registration Officer in her letter indicated to us that there are a number of persons whose names were published on the preliminary list who should not have been published. Further, the letter indicated that the only way that those names can be removed is by objections. Now, we have some concerns about this. First, the letter indicated that the office knew this as early as late December That was well before the preliminary list was published. Nonetheless, the preliminary list was published with those names. It was either an error or it was done deliberately. If it was an error, we believe that common sense would say that if an error has been made, that error ought to be corrected. If it was done deliberately, and we really hope it was not, but if it was done deliberately, it must be a concern for all citizens of Antigua and Barbuda. I wrote to the Chief Registration Officer on the 11th of February, indicating that this list was given to us one day before the deadline for the filing of claims and objections. So it would have been impossible for us to properly scrutinize that list to determine whether or not objections should be made to some of the persons who the supervisor of, I keep saying the supervisor of elections, the same person hold both positions, so excuse me, where the Chief Registration Officer gave 24 hours notice to go through a list that she, in her letter, admitted has persons' names who should not be on it. We have to make it clear. The United Progressive Party is committed to the democratic process, and we want every eligible voter to be given the opportunity to vote. But in situations like these, and we are not raising it so we hear, there we go again about the list. You could check with the supervisor, with the Chief Registration Officer for the accuracy of what I'm telling you this morning. In our letter to the Chief Registration Officer, we asked one of two things be done. Either the names be removed or 3 days given to us so we could look at the list and determine whether we need to file objections. Of course, she indicated she has no legal authority to extend the time. And further, she said it is her understanding, or she was reliably informed, that the party was in, quote, constructive notice of that list. Our party has never received any list from any government official regarding this process. But we are concerned. We are not alarmed, but we are concerned. And so that is where we are today. Again, we are seeing a list where the Chief Registration Officer, by her own admission, in a letter to us on June 4th, tells us, February 4th, sorry, thank you, tell us that here's a list published with names that shouldn't be on it. And when we look at the facts, by her own admission, that they were aware of it in December, the list was published in January. So, as in other cases, like when you make an application to be registered, they could disallow it and inform the person with a certificate of disallowance. Then that person could have made a claim during the claim and objection period. That was not done. We are concerned.
Yes.
We are also concerned that in the process, the law prior to amendment to the Act in 2011, when a person was being objected to, the objector, that is the person who is objecting,